Good evening. I'll give you just a few seconds to take your seats, and then we'll get started for the evening. 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're seated. That's good enough. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We've got a very special evening planned ahead of us, rich and inspiring night of celebrating the best of press freedom as we honor those who have dedicated their careers to standing tall in its practice and in its defense. I think maybe I'll anchor the news tomorrow with the sound of clinking glasses. That'll be my new open. Clink, clink, good evening. Tonight we recognize the achievements of Eve Burton and the Office of General Counsel at Hearst. Who brought her own fan club tonight, obviously. Also, Alberta Ibargwin and Eric Newton from the Knight Foundation. And my friend and colleague Tom Brokaw, who I'll talk about a little bit later, but the journalism that we witness every day is at the very foundation of the freedom that our nation guarantees its people. Our starting point is that there is a right to information, a right to tell the story, and certainly a right to know the truth. But as we also know, more often we are called on to push back against those who would try to stymie the gathering and reporting of news. It's a stance we can never cede. We owe it to our profession, and we owe it to our audiences. We are fortunate to have the tools and the means, and when needed, the legal recourse to fight back. However, for many of our colleagues overseas, including many who work with our news organizations, there is no court of appeal. There's no reporters committee. There are only beatings and intimidation and jail, and sometimes there is death. We all celebrated last year when Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian was released from prison in Iran. Let's hope that this year and soon we can also celebrate with Austin Tice, a freelancer for McClatchy and other news outlets who has been held captive in Syria since August 2012. And they are just two examples among many. So as we honor our exemplary defenders of press freedom tonight, let's also take a moment to remember all of our colleagues who can't come home, those who won't come home, and those we believe will come home. Thank you. And please join me now in welcoming Reporters Committee Chairman Pierre Thomas of ABC News.
Thank you, Lester, and thank you for being here tonight. Tonight is a celebration of journalism and those who work to protect it. It's a special evening and one that we here at the Reporters Committee don't take for granted. We really appreciate each and every one of you who came to celebrate this evening. We're so proud and honored by the special people we will be recognizing tonight. You're all giants, extraordinary at what you do. It's because of you I can proudly announce that this is the most successful fundraising dinner in our history, approaching $1 million. I was trying to resist the urge to say $1 million, but I'll move on. And on a personal note, let me just say to Eve Burton, it's been such a pleasure and honor getting to know you better. It's truly been a joy. And our deepest appreciation of all our honorees and our thanks to those who helped celebrate your legacies. Your support for our awards dinner tonight and all year round is vital to the Reporters Committee, our ability to protect services and provide services to journalists around the world and in this country at no cost to them. As a reporter, I'm witness to the importance of the First Amendment to my work every day. And we at the Reporters Committee take this job of protecting the First Amendment extremely seriously. I want to thank our Executive Director, Bruce Brown, and the staff for their often tireless work. And I also want to thank our Executive Board, who met many hours over the last 2 years, often in those monthly brown bag lunches, to protect the rights of journalists. David Boardman, Susan Goldberg, Margaret Lowe Smith, Sandra Torrey, and John Henry. Let's honor them with a round of applause, please. As chairman of the Reporters Committee, I've come to appreciate the broader scope of press freedom issues affecting our colleagues and how important it is to protect those rights. Unfortunately, in an age of ever-tightening budgets, our resources don't often allow us to deal with the legal costs associated with protecting these rights. This makes the work of the Reporters Committee increasingly more important to preserving press freedom in the United States. Earlier in my remarks, I talked about how this was the most successful dinner ever. And we have one more item that will cap off our efforts. It involves cartoonists. When it comes to press freedom, we often think of reporters and photographers and their production teams. But I would encourage you, though, to also think of the cartoonists, whose work often puts them in the line of fire, literally and figuratively. 21 of our nation's leading cartoonists have donated their artwork for a silent auction tonight, benefiting the work of the Reporters Committee. During the reception, you had a chance to view and bid on 24 creative, some might say subversive, tremendously clever works. I'm pleased to tell you that the bidding will remain open until 9 o'clock, which is just about the time we'll be finishing our desserts. We moved the bidding sheets to the hallway just outside the ballroom. Even if you're not bidding, I encourage you to take a look or go online at rcfp.org/auction. And again, special thanks to the steering committee members who worked on this, Chip Box, Sandra Torrey, and Jane Merrill. Now we move on to the rest of our evening. And I would like Lester to come back to introduce our Fred Graham Distinguished Service Award winner.
Thank you, Pierre. A lot of us in this room are products of not only years of experience, but also the experiences of those around us, those we work with. In some cases, mentors who believed in us, invested time in us. But we've all benefited from seasoned veterans in our newsrooms who have seen and covered so much. We share their knowledge, they offer their counsel, and who know what it is that's so vital about what we do and why journalism matters. And they keep our journalistic compass pointed in the right direction. We have a name for that person at NBC News. We call him Tom Brokaw. And every newsroom would be lucky to have one. Tom, of course, was a longtime anchor of NBC Nightly News, but I bet the title he's most proud of is reporter. He reminds all of us that being in the field and telling stories is the heart of our calling as journalists, and that the news is not about us. At Nightly News, we rely on Tom for his ability to bring clarity and a smart perspective to complicated issues of our time, to cut through the noise. I've certainly relied on his counsel and friendship as I've transitioned into my new role at the network over the last year, and for that I am grateful. Tom is a staunch defender of what we do as journalists and our freedom to pursue the story. I'm grateful that you're celebrating him tonight and his body of work. And before we bring him to the stage to accept his award, let me share a little more about Tom's illustrious career and what he means to all of us.
This is Tom Brokaw reporting.
I remember watching Tom when I was a teenager. He was covering the White House.
Tom Brokaw, NBC News at the White House.
And he was a role model even then.
Good evening from Tokyo,
The Panama Canal.
Mogadishu, Somalia. Good evening from Baghdad. We've been through a lot together, through dark days and nights and seasons of hope and joy. Whatever the story, I had only one objective: to get it right.
As journalists, our mission, of course, is to shine light in dark places and to be the voice for the voiceless. For us, we look to the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press to keep government accountable and to preserve the principles of free speech and unfettered press as guaranteed by the First Amendment. To be honored by this organization is certainly high praise for any of us who work in it. There is no one better suited for this honor than Tom Brokaw.
Good evening, live from the Berlin Wall on the most historic night in this wall's history.
Speaking to Tom Brokaw is like taking a history lesson.
One of the most historic and significant events of the 20th century.
He has been there for so many of the pivotal moments.
How many survived out of your boat?
2.
The great floods of 1993 are beginning to look like a war zone. Tonight, America is at war with terrorists after a stunning series of attacks today.
Every time I sit down and have an informal conversation with them, I come away with a new lesson about American history, about world history.
I was a white working class kid from South Dakota. I didn't have the greatest talent in the world. I was pretty good at what I did. And my life has been one interrupted success story after another. I worked my way from Sioux City, Iowa, to the anchor chair of nightly news.
He was there at the heart of the civil rights movement, Watergate, Tiananmen Square. He's interviewed the Dalai Lama, Mikhail Gorbachev, Nelson Mandela. He has sat down with every president since Richard Nixon. So much of Tom's career has been covering politics. It's clearly his passion. He's covered so many monumental elections in American history, and he helps us put it in perspective.
Let's go to NBC's Lester Holt now, who's...
Tom has been and remains the senior statesman at NBC News. He is a voice that many of us, myself included, rely on. How does that play out to the rest of the night?
Well, you know, what we've seen in the last 3 days is...
We all rely on him for his wisdom, his insight, and certainly his perspective. There's a little mixture of awe and professional respect because of what he continues to offer me. Tom, you are an absolute gem. All of your colleagues here at NBC News have such a depth of respect and love for you, for all you have done and all you continue to contribute. You are so deserving of this honor tonight, and we say congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Brokaw.
Thanks very much. Thank you all very much.
And this is, I'll just hold it there. I think one of the pictures right here. There we go.
I'll take that to the ranch and fill it up with margaritas, first opportunity that I get. First of all, I want to apologize. I had to interrupt the program a little bit because I'm leaving on a later flight this evening to head to Europe. But a lot of people, when I said I had to get out there early, thought, well, he's now 76, he has to go home and have some soft food and get to bed early. That's why he's doing this. It is quite remarkable to come from the part of the world that I did and the family that I came from and to watch that. It's the fulfillment of dreams that I might have had when I was 16 or 17. I was pretty bold, but I could not have imagined the opportunities that would come my way and continue to. But at the same time, that I feel not just like a lucky guy, I feel privileged because I got to be a journalist in this country, protected by the First Amendment. And I worked with all of you, beginning in Sioux City, Iowa, Omaha, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and then around the world. Americans take journalism so seriously that it is one of the coveted professions yet for young people rising up through the ranks. Now, we are going through a historic transition. When I began, journalism was really a kind of two-part beast. It was broadcast journalism, radio and television, and print journalism, newspapers and magazines. Then the world exploded, beginning with Ted Turner and cable television. And stop and think about what we're dealing with now. The digital universe knows no bounds. There are real journalists within the digital universe. There are a lot of wannabes as well, and pretenders, and sometimes it's hard to sort them out. There are those journalists, they describe themselves as that, whose sole purpose in life is to attack what most of us in this room do on a daily basis, to work hard at getting it right, and to try to be even-handed in how we cover it. These are the ideological missionaries for various parts of the political spectrum, operating under the false guise, in my judgment, of being journalists. But we can't be distracted by them. In this chaotic time of this political season, we have to stay true to our mission. And that mission is to provide the American people every day with a clear, coherent, and factual account of what is going on. And from time to time, after you've developed some seniority, you can also give them an idea of what the consequences may be if one part or the other begins to prevail. I'm able to do that now, but of course, I find myself quickly the target of a lot of derision from those people who call themselves journalists. The Sunday after Donald Trump said, yes, I did see thousands of Muslims celebrating in New Jersey. I don't care what anybody else says. I said on Meet the Press, it's a flat lie. It did not happen. And I felt entitled to say that, not only because I was a reporter who knew what was going on, but I had a certain standing in life. I don't pay a lot of attention to what was said about me on the internet and on the blogospheres, but I wanted to show my friends and my family the world in which we're operating. There was this cascade of comments. Brokaw, crawl back under the rock. You don't know what you're talking about. So the pursuit of the truth, the pursuit of facts now is more complex than it has ever been. And that means that we have to be ever more true to the calling that we each feel here. Now, having said that, I've got to be a little bit careful because I was at Ole Miss over the weekend for the commencement address, and I opened at the Grove by saying I was so relieved to be at Ole Miss because if I were giving a commencement address at Alabama, I would have to use shorter words and smaller sentences. There is now a circular in Alabama with my face on it saying, wanted. And I finally went on Morning Joe this morning and said, it was a joke, folks. It's okay. It was a joke. But we've got to also remember to be fearless, to remember that journalism is a robust profession and that we can have fun with it from time to time. I'm a big fan of political cartoonists. I think they're an important part of the spectrum that we engage in every day because they can find the essence of what's going on with just a few line strokes. And so you gather here tonight honoring a great organization and some people who have given their life to it. I'm privileged to be a part of this honor. But it's more than just one night. This work goes on day in and day out. It goes on, beginning with the excellence of the work that we do, work that we can defend, work that upholds the great traditions of American journalism. Founding fathers gave us the First Amendment, and they did that with good reason, because they knew that the future of this country would depend on the free flow of information and the exchange of ideas. And everyone in this room is a part of that, and it's been my privilege to spend most of my life doing just that. So thank you very much. I've got to catch a plane to Europe tonight, so I'm going to have to leave you a little bit early, but thank you for honoring me here tonight. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome dinner chairman and CEO of AOL, Tim Armstrong.
Thank you all for coming. Dinner's over. It's tough to speak after Tom Brokaw, and Tom, thank you so much for everything you've done for the industry, and we get to see you at Sun Valley every year, and it's amazing to see you here tonight, so have a safe trip from all of us. First, I just wanted to say that this dinner is super personal for me. Last year at the dinner, I got to sit with David Carr. And David Carr, I gave David Carr a lot of ammunition to write about over the years, and it was a real honor to spend time with him. And we also got to meet James Foley's parents. And I think the dinner last year really represented the best of what the journalism community is that we deal with overall. And tonight is even more special. It's special because we have great honorees. It's special. Many of the people that work in the journalism community at AOL who know some of the honorees came out. People from Huffington Post and TechCrunch and Patch and the different organizations that we've invested in. The honorees I just wanted to speak about really briefly tonight. The first is Eve Burton, and Eve is somebody who is, give it up for Eve. We call Eve, her nickname at AOL when she was on our board was the Rosetta Stone of media, because she's the only person I know who can talk chic and talk geek at the same time overall. And the first introduction I got to Eve was from Bill Campbell, who recently passed away, who's reminded me of the most famous Silicon Valley coach. And this is the email he wrote me about Eve when he knew I was going to meet her. She is a star, a wonderful lawyer, a solid BD person, stays abreast of technology, particularly on the media side. She is outstanding, period. And this is coming from Steve Jobs' coach and Larry Page's coach and everyone else. And I think tonight, Eve had a quote in 2008, which I think is really incredible in terms of her commitment to journalism, which she was covered in saying, "It's the fear that doing good investigative work is balanced against the willingness to go to jail." And when you hear some of the work that Eve did, you'll know why she's getting the honor tonight. And there's some very special stories about Eve standing between people and jail, which you will find out about. Alberto was also on the AOL board, and feel very lucky to be here honoring him as well. And for those of you who don't know, Alberto is the best damn thing to come out of Cuba since Khrushchev's missiles. He is true Cuban at heart and very passionate. Alberto has probably more hardware than anyone in the room. I see Don Graham, so maybe Don Graham will be competitive, but he has more awards for journalism than almost anybody I know, including 3 Pulitzers, and just is an amazing person. But I wanted to finish on Alberto tonight with our company, which Tom just described as the changes that are happening in digital media. We are one of the first companies to invest very heavily in journalism with TechCrunch and Huffington Post and Patch, and we got attacked by an activist shareholder, and our company basically was in jeopardy of continuing on investing in content. And there was, and Alberto knows this, I've just told this story in front of the whole company, one person in the company, when we had a fight or flight moment on investing in journalism, stood up and was the single voice on our board, on the management team, who said we're going to fight and keep investing in journalism overall, and it was Alberto. And I think for the thousands of employees at AOL who are doing that mission and that work, we really owe it to you, Alberto, for the company's success and what's happened overall, and I appreciate it. And I just wanted to read you one tweet from Alberto, because I think it sums him up, which is doing things that you are doing things that are your passion is the way to live a fulfilling life, and that is who you are as a person, and we appreciate that. And finally, I would just say to Eric, the other honoree, it's a real pleasure for us to have hosted the dinner. I think we're going to hear from Lee from Columbia later, but enjoy tonight's dinner. It's a meaningful dinner for all of us, but especially meaningful because of the honorees tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we dine, just please remember that bidding in the cartoon auction, which is now in the hallway outside the ballroom, will close promptly at 9 o'clock, just before we begin the second half of our program. Please enjoy your dinner. We'll be back with you in a little bit.